Hi everyone, Paul here from FamilyWheels.ca with another car review for your growing family, and a bit of a change of plans here this week on the channel. We'd originally planned to bring you an Audi Cabriolet review, a convertible, to wrap up Audi month here on the channel, but a last minute switcheroo from the folks at Glenmore Audi, and honestly, I couldn't be happier about it. The last time we were in an Audi SQ5, it won our Best All-Rounder Award in 2016. It's the sportier, more performance-oriented version of the company's bestseller, the wildly popular Q5, and we loved it for its surprising zip while still not compromising on things like a killer all-wheel drive system and a very usable second row and trunk. Well, we're now onto a brand new version of the SQ5, and like that new S4 that we were driving back in the fall, we've seen a jump from a supercharged engine to a turbo. And that's just the beginning on this thing. It is totally new for 2018, so let's hop on board the new SQ5 and see if it still has that magic sauce this week here on Family Wheels. So I'm really digging the looks here on this latest generation of the Q5 and SQ5 vehicles. I think it looks a little bit sportier, and it also lines up a lot better with the general Audi family of cars. I love the scallop lines on the hood here, the distinctive headlights. Interestingly though, dimensions haven't actually changed that much on the outside, just over an inch longer for 2018, marginally taller, and actually a little bit more narrow than before, but its interior space has actually been further expanded in this latest generation. Now, one thing that might surprise you about its looks, you might be wondering, hey, where's its tailpipe? Because most performance cars, they tend to make a big show of their exhaust systems out back, but Audi opted to tuck it away underneath the bumper for 2018, perhaps preparing buyers for the idea that performance doesn't necessarily mean a big showy exhaust, you know, as the company ramps up its electric offerings. But don't worry, the SQ5 still has a delightful burble on the startup and can get downright growly when you lay your foot down. That's all thanks to a 3-liter V6 turbocharged engine, pretty well the identical engine to what you see in the S4 car. But interestingly, even though we've moved away from a supercharger here for this latest generation, we're still seeing the exact same power output, 354 horsepower. But it is slightly torquier for 2018 with 369 back of the seat foot-pounds. Now, jumping over to this turbo has changed this car's character a little bit. Like we noticed in the S4 video, it's slower on the uptick with a surprising amount of off-the-line turbo lag. But once you do get this car beyond, say, like 25 kilometers an hour, you gotta watch out because all of a sudden it takes off. It's mid-range power, it's dramatic and intense and honestly pretty addictive. You can get this car up to 100 kilometers an hour in just 5.3 seconds. And to do that, you pop the transmission into sport mode, use this drive select function to scroll over to the most aggressive dynamic mode, and then basically you floor it. Here we go. There's that turbo lag, and now we're off to the races. Up to 70, 80, 90, and 100, just like that. That is faster than the Audi TT Sports Coupe that we were driving just a couple of weeks ago. But I gotta say, when I was pinning it there, it didn't feel like it was stepping out. It never feels like it's on the ragged edge. It's all very composed, actually, and that's thanks to Audi's Quattro all-wheel drive. But unlike the regular Q5, which has gone to a front-wheel drive biased Haldex Quattro, this is the more traditional old-school system. It's rear-wheel drive bias with 60% of its power getting sent to the back under ideal driving conditions, and that also gives you a far better driving feel. So for real Audi purists, they might find themselves gravitating toward this car for that reason alone. But it doesn't stop there. Pretty much all of the powertrain, all of the little spinny bits here on the SQ5 have been upgraded. The suspension is stiffer for better cornering feel, but still totally livable for day-to-day grocery shopping and kid drop-offs. The brakes are bigger, which means the SQ5 can crank you to a stop in pretty short order. But be forewarned, these bigger discs mean special, far more expensive expensive wheels if you want to buy a secondary set of winter tires. Audi's also swapped out the 7-speed dual clutch transmission that we had in the previous generation of this car, given that transmission to the run-of-the-mill Q5, and instead given the SQ5 an 8-speed automatic that can now shift a lot faster, and it can also handle the torque loads out of this grunty V6 far better as well. Now, just like a lot of companies, Audi is going over to turbos and dumping that supercharger because it means that you've got better fuel economy out of this car. And while if you really do hammer down on the gas pedal, that turbo spools up and your fuel economy just nosedives, we're still seeing a really impressive 10.4 liters per 100 kilometers this week. And yeah, there have been times where I've really been pushing this car this week too, so that's a pretty impressive number. By comparison, we saw 9.2 liters per 100 kilometers in the regular Q5 with its much smaller 4-cylinder this past fall. And honestly, that little bump in fuel economy, just for the sheer grin-inspiring joy of driving this version of the car, is totally worth it. Now, one thing I've always loved about the SQ5 is that even though you're getting a more juiced up version of the regular Q5, you're not giving up your towing capacity. A lot of times that happens when you're going to a more performance-oriented SUV, but here it's exactly the same as the regular Q5 and very impressive for an SUV in this class, 4,400 pounds, which makes this car far more versatile. Now let's get to price, because that has changed for 2018. It's $1,000 more than the outgoing version, and that means it now starts at 61,300 bucks Canadian for the progressive trim. But standard equipment has also been notched up. LED headlights and tail lights, a power tailgate with hands-free functions, power folding side mirrors, front and rear parking sensors, a huge panorama sunroof, Audi's smartphone interface with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, 3 zones of climate control, a heated steering wheel, Nappa leather seating surfaces with this gorgeous diamond stitching. That's all good stuff. And granted, $61,000, that's not chump change, but when you look at the kind of kit you're getting on board here and the kind of sport-derived powertrain that's on board, I actually think it's got some pretty good bang for its buck at its base price. And then, for just shy of $66,000, there's this best-selling Technique trim, adding a brand new 360-degree parking camera, a Bang & Olufsen sound system, rear cross traffic alert that senses cars about to cross your path as you're backing out of a parking space. You also get heated rear seats, Audi's amazing customizable virtual cockpit instead of more traditional gauges in front of the driver, and this surprisingly effective heated and cooled cup holder right here. But as Audi does, there are always the extra packages that can tempt the price ever higher. There's the $1,500 driver assistance package for advanced driver safety tech like lane keep assist or adaptive cruise, or Audi's pretty cool congestion assist system that actually helps you drive in stop and go traffic. There's these sleek carbon fiber inlays, they're 900 bucks. Red brake calipers are $500. Glenmore Audi pretty well exclusively brings in SQ5s with the $1,900 sport differential. This brings a whole new character to the SQ5 in the corners, because this system allows pretty well all of the engine torque to go to one wheel. So say you're accelerating into a turn, almost all that power is going to get sent to the outside wheel, which really pushes you through the corner and helps avoid that understeer that many complain about in Audi cars. So I'd say that's a worthwhile bit of kit. Meanwhile, there's the new adaptive air suspension, which lets you hone in the ride height and ride feel to your liking. You can also dip down the trunk for easier loading, or say getting the family dog in there. That's a $1,500 add-on. And if you want ventilated seats, you'll have to go for the $1,100 comfort seating package. So basically what I'm saying here is that the price can get away from you in the SQ5 pretty quickly. Our as-tested price here in our test vehicle, for example, even though we don't have all the bells and whistles, comes in at $73,190 pre-tax up here in Canada. But if you look at its big competitors like the Jaguar F-Pace S or the Mercedes-AMG GLC 43 or the Porsche Macan S, they all start at higher prices in the SQ5, and let's be honest, you get nickel and dime from those brands as well. All of those competitors, by the way, also use 3-liter V6 engines, and the SQ5 is squarely in the middle of the pack when it comes to power output. But if you look at the Jag with the most power of the bunch, its 0 to 100 km/h time is 1.5 seconds slower than here in the SQ5. Meanwhile, the interior here on this car is a huge step forward for 2018. It's clean and simple, and Audi has pulled the same climate controls from the A4, which I really like. The infotainment system is pretty good. I'm not crazy about this trackpad for tracing addresses or contacts from your contact list with the tip of your finger, but there's also a click wheel if you'd prefer, or some really effective voice recognition software too. Personally, I prefer a good old-fashioned touchscreen, and I know I've taken grief from some of you about that in the past, but here's something interesting, and that's that pictures of the new Q3 were just released in this past week from Audi. And it looks to me like they're using a touchscreen in that vehicle. It looks really good. A nice pared down interior, no big dials to worry about, no track pads. So you may be seeing touchscreens coming to an Audi near you in the years to come. Just saying. Now elsewhere here in the interior, we've got 62 decibels at 100 kilometers an hour, which is a really good number for highway cruising. We also have very comfortable seats on board, and all of the fit and finish throughout the cabin really lines up with the premium feel in this car. But here's where I think the SQ5 really earns its stripes, because it's not a huge SUV from the outside. It's very quick, but it has some downright impressive interior space. The second row is very comfortable for adults, even with tall passengers up front. You've got the option to recline a little bit back there if you want to, or you can slide those seats forward to give you more trunk space as well. Meanwhile, our rear-facing car seat test came up with 28.5 inches from the back of the front passenger seat up to the glove box, which is right on par with numbers we've seen from larger SUVs, things like the 7-passenger Toyota Highlander. Meanwhile, the trunk is slightly bigger for 2018 and leads all those competitors that I was just talking about by a healthy margin. We now have 757 liters of cargo space back there. The Macan, 550 liters. In fact, the F-Pace is the closest and still has over 100 liters less space. So needless to say, plenty of room in here for our standardized trunk test or for our big family dog. And I love that Audi puts 40-20-40 split seats into their second row for, you know, throwing a pair of skis or something into this car. Because what a ski hill slayer this thing would be. And Audi must know that, because unlike the regular Q5, the SQ5 comes standard with cross rails. So it'd be really easy to put on something like a ski box or a bike rack. Honestly, I would love to take this car on a ski road trip. Well, if you've got a family and you need some extra space in the second row in the trunk, if you want some extra towing capacity for occasionally towing a boat or a trailer, yet you still want a vehicle that can make the hair on your arm stand up on end when you want it to, the SQ5 really does have to be on your short list. Now, if you're like me and you're a car nut, chances are you've got a list of dream cars. But when I look at them, the fact is they're kind of unlivable for the most part. They're supercars, they're dream cars, but I also have lists for cars ranked on price or livability with what I actually need from a car on a daily basis. And the SQ5, if you were to mash all those metrics up together, would find itself right in one of the top spots for me. While its personality may have changed a bit for 2018, it's still a well-rounded delight to drive. So what a great way to wrap up Audi month here on the channel, and a big thanks to Glenmore Audi here in Calgary for supplying all of our test vehicles this month. Now for our next review, it's a 2,500 kilometer long-term test in the brand new 2018 Honda Odyssey minivan. You can check that out next time right here on Family Wheels.